Johnny Depp, Empath or Narcissist? Part 11. Problematic behaviours. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, continuing the very detailed examination of Johnny Depp's behaviour. I made it clear at the start of this analysis, and it's worth repeating, that one does not form a knee-jerk reaction to determine what Johnny Depp is. One does so by a consideration of evidence, not based upon feeling, not based upon liking the man, likeable as he is, but based upon the evidence of his behaviours, the evidence taken from those that are his supporters, the evidence that's taken from those that are his detractors, evidence which is more impartial from those that have interviewed him, from reports of his behaviours, videos, news broadcasts, and so forth and so on. There's a huge amount of material, given his age, and, of course, the prominence that he's enjoyed as a famous actor. In order to do this topic justice, in order to demonstrate the accuracy of the analysis, it is important to go through all of this evidence. Not all of it has made its way into this series, because it essentially replicates points that are already being made. But the major platforms, the major pillars of Depp's life have to be addressed to help you understand, and to help you see how the behaviours can be interpreted in different ways. We now turn to issues of problematic behaviours. One simple example of that is Depp's almost Bart Simpson-esque penchant for checking into hotels under silly pseudonyms. Why, at the time that this was reported, would a 31-year-old man tell a front desk clerk that he is Mr. Donkey Penis? Apparently, it makes for interesting wake-up calls. Is that just a demonstration of a sense of humour, or is it a lack of accountability for such behaviour, behaving in a stupid manner towards a receptionist from a man who's 31 years old and ought to know better? Depp was once arrested on charges of criminal mischief after trashing his $1,200 a night room at New York City's Tony Mark Hotel. Police suspect that he was drunk and that he'd been fighting with his then-girlfriend, Kate Moss. After several hours in a holding cell, he was released and told that the charges would be dismissed if he stayed out of trouble for 6 months and agreed to reimburse the Mark $9,767.12 in damages and guest fees. Is this a demonstration of entitled behaviour, showing no accountability for it and no emotional empathy for those affected? Does it demonstrate a volatility of temper in falling out with Kate Moss? Or was it a reaction to the external stressor of Kate Moss's behaviour and the presence of alcohol? Prior to that incident, when he was visiting Moss in London, he reportedly caused a ruckus in a pub when 27-year-old photographer Jonathan Walpole mistakenly picked up Depp's glass from the bar. Apparently, Walpole told the Evening Standard that Depp pulled both of his ears very hard, and then some ape who was with Depp leant on his back, put his arm around his neck and tried to force his head to the floor. Such a reaction to physically assault an individual just because they picked up Depp's glass seems to be again a volatile reaction. Is this a response to a threat to control? Indeed, narcissists have a hair trigger when it comes to threats to control, owing to the hypersensitivity of the need to continue to assert that control. And something simple of taking an individual's glass is something that could be interpreted by a narcissist unconsciously as a threat to control, resulting in a rather rudimentary response of physical assault. Or, again, given that this took place in a bar, was this just Depp larking about under the influence of alcohol? Many of Depp's friends, these incidents are just Johnny being Johnny, the sort of outburst they've come to expect on occasion from the actor. John Waters stated, "I think Johnny obviously has a temper, but this was a very minor incident," talking of the Mark melee. "The room service must have been bad," he joked. He identifies that Depp has a temper, But anger is a narcissistic trait, and I've explained elsewhere, everybody exhibits anger. The difference is whether it's fury, which is the manifestation from a narcissist. Marlon Brando, who befriended Depp when the two shot the movie Don Juan DeMarco and The Centerfold, he was worried enough to place a phone call to Depp's lawyer, David Breitbart, when he heard about the arrest. He was very concerned about Depp's well-being, says Breitbart, and if there was anything he could do to help, he would like to do so. Was he identifying that the behaviour was too extreme, perhaps? Timothy Leary, the 60s LSD guru, who's the godfather of Depp's one-time fiancée, Winona Ryder, said that Depp's both wild and charitable. Therefore, that appears to encompass both the presence of emotional empathy, but also narcissistic behaviour. Depp had been arrested prior to the Mark Hotel incident on 3 previous occasions for getting into a tiff with an LA police officer over a jaywalking ticket, for speeding in Arizona, and for assaulting a hotel security guard in Vancouver, British Columbia. Are these repeated instances of an absence of accounting for his behaviour and an absence of emotional empathy, behaving with a sense of entitlement, exhibiting threats to control, and therefore responding in a manner to those threats which causes him to exhibit ignited fury, resulting in him being arrested? These are not one-off incidents. On one instance, Depp blew on fire with a mouthful of gasoline and his face ignited, and it was only the quick moves of a friend that saved him from being a burned casualty. Depp's arms bear rows of scars from self-inflicted knife wounds, each one commemorating what Depp considers an important life event. "I have," he once explained, "a funny relationship with my body. It sounds so stupid, but for me, there shouldn't be any halfway." Is this the all-or-nothing behaviour of a narcissist, or is it quite simply that in instances where he is affected by the behaviour of others, he turns to self-harm? The night after Depp was released from jail, in the incident mentioned above, he was at Babyland, a Lower East Side bar. Jerry Price, a Manhattan pipe fitter, claims that Depp bumped into him at the club's bar, after which Price says he was pummeled by the biker bodyguards and hit with a rocking horse. Attorney Breitbart denies Depp's involvement, and Babyland regulars say that it was Price who actually provoked the scuffle. So there are instances, of course, if the evidence of the Babyland regulars is to be accepted, that it's not always the situation that Depp would be at fault, and indeed, it's often the case that famous and wealthy people become a supposed easy target for the envy of others, trying to provoke them for the purpose of getting a reaction so that they could perhaps get a video or a photograph that could then be sold to the newspapers. As I've mentioned previously, when it came to Kate Moss and Depp, friends explained that they couldn't keep their hands, lips, mouths, legs off each other, but also they are not successful in keeping their brawls private. Previously, they've been heard shouting at one another in the dining room of Manhattan's Royalton Hotel. A longtime friend of Depp stated instead of hitting women, he just gets angry and lets off steam in other ways. Might it be, therefore, that Depp's behaviour is the manifestation of ignited fury? He doesn't lash out physically at women, but he certainly does so verbally. Is that the application of heated fury? Or is it a reaction to the treatment that he receives from Kate Moss, diminishing his own emotional empathy for her and causing him to fight back? Johnny Depp once joked about assassinating Donald Trump during an appearance at Glastonbury. The actor received a rock-star welcome during the event on the Somerset side. He introduced his 2004 film The Libertine along with director Julian Temple, but began talking about the US president following questions from the 1,500-strong audience back in 2017. Depp said, "I think he needs help, and there are a lot of wonderful dark places he could go," Depp said to cheers from the crowd. "It is just a question. I'm not insinuating anything. By the way, this is going to be in the press. It will be horrible. I like that you are all a part of it." When was the last time an actor assassinated a president? he asked in reference to the death of Abraham Lincoln by John Wilkes Booth in 1865. "I want to clarify, I am not an actor. I lie for a living. However, it has been a while, and maybe it is time," he added. While such comments may well have been intended as a joke, to stand on a public platform and to talk about the assassination of the US president, whether you like Trump or not, does seem to be rather reckless behaviour, which demonstrates a sense of entitlement and a lack of accountability for those behaviours. It also appears that he's playing to the crowd, which is showmanship, a narcissistic trait. Depp was once arrested in Vancouver in 1989 for assaulting a security guard after the police were called to end a loud party at his hotel room. As mentioned previously, he was arrested again in 1999 for brawling with paparazzi outside a restaurant while dining in London with Vanessa Paradis. On that occasion, was he showing a sense of entitlement and lack of accountability? Or was it the case that actually what was occurring was that he was protecting Paradis against the intrusive and provocative behaviours of the paparazzi? In 2012, disabled US Irvine medical professor Robert Eckert sued Depp and 3 security firms, claiming to have been roughed up by his bodyguards at a concert in Los Angeles in 2011. During the incident, she was allegedly handcuffed and dragged 40 feet across the floor, resulting in injuries including a dislocated elbow. Depp's attorneys contended that Eckert provoked the alleged assault and therefore consented to any assault and battery. Eckert's court papers stated that Depp, despite being his security guard's direct manager, did nothing to stop the attack. Before the case went to trial, Depp settled with Eckert for an undisclosed sum. Was it the case that Depp was unaware of what was going on? Was it the case that Depp was aware and did nothing, showing a lack of emotional empathy? The circumstances of that are, of course, difficult to ascertain, but there's a pattern of behaviour starting to show. In April 2015, Depp's then wife, Heard, breached Australia's biosecurity laws when she failed to declare her and Depp's 2 dogs to the customs when they flew to Queensland, where he was working on a film. Heard pleaded guilty to falsifying quarantine documents, stating that she had made a mistake due to sleep deprivation. Blame shifting. She is placed on a $1,000 one-month good behaviour bond for producing a false document. Heard and Depp also released a video in which they apologised for their behaviour and urged people to adhere to the biosecurity laws. In her instance, of course, it's false contrition. Is it the same that could be said of him, or was he exhibiting genuine contrition? In March 2016, Depp cut ties with his management company, the management group TMG, and then sued them in January 2017 for allegedly improperly managing his money and leaving him over $40 million in debt. TMG stated that Depp was responsible for his own fiscal mismanagement and countersued him for unpaid fees. We will be mentioning more of that when we look at the financial behaviours of Johnny Depp in a forthcoming part. In a related suit, Depp also sued his lawyers, Bloom Hergot, in January 2017. Both lawsuits were settled, the former in 2018 and the latter in 2019. In 2018, 2 of Depp's former bodyguards sued him for unpaid fees and unsafe working conditions. The suit was settled in 2019. In 2018, Depp was sued for allegedly hitting and verbally insulting a crew member while under the influence of alcohol on the set of City of Lies. These examples, which involve litigation, and as we know the United States is particularly litigation-prone, but nevertheless highlights a pattern of behaviour. Does he exhibit a sense of entitlement to behave the way that he wants, and that he operates with no accountability for his behaviours, with no emotional empathy for those affected by what he does, resulted in repeated lawsuits? Does he bring lawsuits born out of genuine circumstance, or as an attempt to blame shift, as he looks to assert control? There are certainly plenty of incidences where he's involved in legal action, which does very much start to paint a particular picture of his conduct and behaviours. During the recent trial, Amber Heard's legal team shared an email that Depp wrote in 2013 to Elton John, in which he complained about the French model and actress Vanessa Paradis, whom he was with for about 14 years, from 1998 to 2012. In the email, Depp confided in Sir Elton about his mother's recovery from a health issue before going on to tell the singer that his children had fallen head over heels for Heard and that his ex was trying to brainwash his children against him. On the other side of the coin, my kids have fallen head over heels in deep love with Amber, my girl, and that pressure off my shoulders is fucking gone, he told Sir Elton. That is unlike the French extortionist ex-cunt attempts to brainwash them against her, which I'm sure is imminent. Of course, we know what happened with the relationship between him and Amber Heard, and at this juncture all was rosy. He speaks favourably of her, and that will of course be because she was giving him the golden period. But was he doing the same to her in return? Furthermore, to refer to the mother of his children, who largely does not seem to have conducted herself in any way that would be seen as detrimental to Depp, indeed coming forward and defending him against allegations of abuse, to refer to her as the ex-cunt and a French extortionist is an insult and shows a lack of emotional empathy. Also, the fact that he believes that she was brainwashing the children against him might suggest paranoia. Is this the paranoia of a narcissist, or is this the paranoia of a habitual drug user? Also during the trial, other texts from Depp were addressed and a cross-examination from lawyer Rottenborn. He brought up the actor's friendship with the British actor Paul Bettany. Rottenborn said, "Paul Bettany is a good friend you've done drugs with." Depp replied, "That's a strange question." Depp then admitted he drank alcohol and had done cocaine with him and taken pills together. We will, of course, be addressing Depp's alcohol and drug issues, but on the face of it, the taking of drugs is an abrogation of responsibility because of the criminal nature associated with it, and, in effect, an escape from responsibilities. Doesn't mean that somebody's a narcissist, of course, but it is an indicator of narcissistic behaviour. There is an important difference between the two. Depp and Bettany have been friends for years and starred together in 2014's sci-fi movie Transcendence, and again in the action comedy Mordecai in 2015. Rottenborn read out texts Depp sent to Bettany on June 11, 2013. One of them read, "Let's burn Amber." Rottenborn asked Depp, "You see that?" In a low voice, Depp responded, "I do see that." Rottenborn said, "You didn't stop." The next text down says, "Let's drown her before we burn her." I read that right. Depp said yes. Rottenborn said, "I'd like to apologise to the court and the jury for some of the language I'm going to use." He read the next text Depp sent to Bettany, which read, "I will fuck her burnt corpse afterward to make sure she is dead." The lawyer asked for confirmation. Did I read that right? Depp answered, "You certainly did." Rottenborn said, "You wrote that about the woman who would later become your wife." Depp said, "Yes." Rottenborn also brought up another text sent by Depp on the April 9th, 2015, which Depp said was to Heard's sister Whitney. It read, "I'm all right, though I never want to lay eyes on that filthy whore Amber. Most embarrassing." Rottenborn said, "When you called Amber that filthy whore, she was your wife at the time." Depp said, "Yes, sir." In contrast, the court heard texts between Depp and his former security guard, Jerry Judge, on April 26, 2015, about 2 weeks after the filthy whore message. Judge wrote, "Johnny, lovely to see how you and Amber are so happy. Two of you need happiness. Love to you and Amber." Depp replied, "We have been perfect. All I had to do was send the monster away and lock him up. We've been happier than ever." Then in a text to his personal doctor on June 28, 2015, Depp returned to the monster theme. Depp wrote, I have locked my monster child away in a cage deep within, and it's fucking worked. We're goddamn best friends now." Although, of course, we know about Heard's behaviours that might attract the description of being a filthy whore, ultimately, calling her that does show an absence of emotional empathy. The comments, of course, about burning her and such like are part of a Monty Python skit, and it was a private joke between Bettany and Depp. Of course, that belies a certain mindset, But it doesn't mean, of course, that there was any actual serious intent on the part of Depp to say, we'll burn her, and as Bettany had suggested about conducting a drowning test because she's a witch. But rather to refer to somebody that he's in a relationship with in such terms, even jokingly, does show a reduction in emotional empathy. It does show a sense of entitlement to talk about that person in that way. It does show a lack of accountability for the behaviours. Might it be that at the time the texts were written, Depp was drunk or high, and therefore that eroded his emotional empathy, resulting in those texts? Or is this demonstrative of narcissistic behaviours on his part, whereby he finds it something he's easily able to do to insult somebody he apparently loves by talking about them, or rather writing about them in that way, and also referencing them as a filthy whore? Back in 2018, of course, Depp brought a libel lawsuit in the UK against News Group newspapers, publisher of The Sun, which had called him a wife-beater. In November 2020, the High Court of Justice ruled that 12 of the 14 incidents of violence claimed by Heard were substantially true. The court rejected Depp's claims of a hoax and accepted that the allegations Heard had made against Depp had damaged her career and activism. Depp appealed against the verdict, with his lawyers accusing Heard of not following through on the charity pledge, something which I have addressed separately and has been demonstrated to be correct, and that the pledge had significantly influenced the judge's view of Heard. In response, Heard's legal team stated that she had not donated the full amount yet due to the lawsuits against her by Depp. I have elsewhere demonstrated that that was nonsense. Depp's appeal to overturn the verdict, however, was rejected by the Court of Appeal in March 2021. The Court of Appeal did not find the argument that the charity pledge influenced the outcome convincing, as the judge in the trial had reached their verdict by evaluating the evidence relating to the 14 alleged incidents of violence. The issue of donation was not part of it, but a comment made after the verdict had already been reached. And of course, we have Depp issuing proceedings against Heard recently, and which has culminated in the trial that has received such huge coverage. Is this propensity to issuing proceedings, again, more litigation, part of his need to assert control, an inability to let the matter go, that each time Heard comes up on his radar, that his narcissism drives him to assert control over her, and he does so through the bringing of proceedings? Or is it simply the case that he is an empathic truth seeker and feels that the behaviours and the things that have been said about him are untrue, and therefore he must take action to protect himself? This section certainly shows that there is clearly a dark side to Johnny Depp. Human beings aren't saints. Empathic individuals can engage in problematic behaviours, but there is a substantial catalogue of problematic behaviour from Johnny Depp, and these are just some of the examples, alongside, of course, in the earlier section, where I talked about all of the various instances of the charitable and fun and kind things that he does for people. Might it be that all of the good stuff that he does is facade management, and all of these problematic behaviours that we see are the real manifestation of his behaviours? Or is it the case that all of the good things that he does are driven by genuine emotional empathy, and the dark side is a manifestation of narcissistic traits, but not narcissism, occasioned when there is a reduction of his emotional empathy? Either way, there's substantial evidence on either side. This is not an individual who occasionally strays, but repeatedly does so. Are those strays as a consequence of his narcissism? Or are these repeated strays into the dark side a consequence of addiction issues and the response to external stresses alongside those addiction issues, namely the receipt of abuse from others? You can make the determination as you continue to hear this evidence.